exploiting these girls, using these girls to be her mouthpiece about the non-issues that she's talking about. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, Leilani of Barbados. Today we're doing this thing a little bit differently. I'm doing a review of Archetypes, Beyond the Archetype Human Being with Michaela J. Rodriguez and Candace Bushnell. And this time we're going to watch it together because I need the support.
There's a piece of art in my sitting room. It's not fancy. It's kind of this rectangle shape, almost plaque-like. And it just says a few words very simply across it. Humankind, be both. My dear friend Genevieve gave it to you.
Okay, first of all, she has a sitting room, so we know she's rich. Yeah. And she has art on her walls. We know she's super rich.
Years ago, when I walked past it, it just always makes me smile, of course, because I love her and our friendship, and it reminds me of her. We've been super close since we were about 17, but also because it's true. Humankind, be both.
It says humankind be both. Human and kind? I guess, listen, I know this podcast is going to be a lot of wordplay because what else can she do at this point but pick apart words?
And I specifically was thinking about something that I was told many years ago. You're not just a human being. You're a human, just being. Now, the woman who told me this was trying to remind me to just be easier on myself. Sort of in the same vein of saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Well, this is just another version of that same ilk of advice. You're human, just being. And as I think about what we've covered throughout this podcast so far and the many ways my guests and I have reflected on the girls that we once were and the women that we've become, I wanted to revisit a large piece of my origin story, my old school.
Okay, before we go any further, this is giving me very much Jordan Peterson. He's a psychologist, wacky guy. He's become a meme online, a joke online. There's this clip of him. You can watch it.
You know, so people say to me, what do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean, except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks.
So I wonder if she took him as inspiration, again, missing the mark because he's actually a joke.
Okay. Ready, team?
Ready, team? She has a team, always has a team.
Very nice and new.
Oh.
Isn't it a pretty campus? Oh my gosh, how funny. My locker was right over here. Which one? I was somewhere smack in the middle. I don't remember because these are your lockers when you're in high school and then the middle school lockers were up there.
It's all very nice and new. Why don't you take one of the 14 million that you overspent on your house and put it into a building on your campus, your high school campus, and call it the Meghan Markle building? I don't know. How about you do that? It's all very nice and new here.
You've heard me talk about Immaculate Heart on this series before and the influence it's had on my life. And look, I was there from ages about 12 to 17.
Look, I was there from... No one asked you. No one's arguing with you. She's so abrasive.
Look, I was there from ages...
Who cares?
Which are really formative years in your life. They certainly were for me. And let me just say, being back there, the energy... It was palpable. I was happy to be back there, and it was also really fun, especially when I made a surprise visit and I popped into some of the young ladies in volleyball practice.
Surprise visit. The most important person in the world is here. Surprise! She makes a good point. High school was, for many people, the formative years. They always say, like, if you thought that high school was the most important years of your life, then you're a loser. But at the same time, I appreciate that not everybody's high school years were about studying, grinding, and trying to get into university or the best university. But you almost wonder with Meghan Markle if her high school years molded her into a bully, like if she was a bully in her high school years and that's where she honed her skills, or if she was bullied, silenced, And that's where she cultivated all of this aggression to bully and demean everybody that comes into her realm, if you will.
Well, she didn't tell me yet. Walking through those halls, it was just so many memories came flooding right back to me. Okay, so now we are going into one of my old classrooms, and it's so great because as an adult you come back into this environment, it feels so small, but when you're in high school, this campus was so big. It's true, because back then, that campus did seem to be a lot bigger. But then again, so did everything in life. Just think about it. Middle school and high school.
On the contrary, I think that when you go back to your old high school, you think it's a lot smaller because you remember it. Like, you remember the hallways, you remember everything, where it's located. I mean, if you have a good memory, you should feel very much at home. You know what I mean? You spent 4 years there. Her take is always so backward. It's just so confusing to me.
This is a really big time for anyone in their life. You're so young, you're so impressionable, and you also think you know everything when you're a teenager. But for young women especially, this is the time period in which you sort of start to look around at the culture, at society, the messages you're receiving, and you ask yourself constantly, how am I supposed to be? At least that was very much my experience of adolescence. And maybe things have changed.
Hi.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Well, thank you.
Great. Hi. I'm Megan.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Grace. Hi. Oh yeah, good to see you. Hello. I visited the school to sit down in conversation with 3 amazing young women just on the cusp of adulthood. They had just graduated about a month or so prior. Congrats on graduating. So here's what I wanted to ask them. I wanted to fully understand, do the stigmas and labels that I grew up with still hold the same weight? And keep in mind, at the time that I was sitting down with them earlier this summer, the show wasn't out yet. They didn't have a sense of what it was. So I was trying to set the table for them to understand, here's what I'm looking into.
Okay, the show wasn't out yet. I know, but you could have still given them bullet points and talking points.
I've been talking to a lot of women about the words, stereotypes, and labels they could put on us. I want to ask you guys, what are the labels that you think women get tagged with?
The B word.
Yeah.
Oh, the B word. Yeah, they'd never watched any of my stuff before, none of my podcasts, which was literally titled The B Word. You believe this? Okay, I just decided that I don't want to go in on these students because I'm assuming they're minors. If they were just high school students or graduated, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I will say this. Meghan Markle thinking she was a genius and some kind of... Oh my goodness, why can't I get this out? Yes. Put him inside there with you. Thank you.
Can I put him in the video at the end?
Okay. But I will say this, Meghan Markle thinking she was some kind of nerd, smart girl, brilliant, studious, this and that in high school, the bar is low. I'm just going to say that. The bar is low. And it might be because she's fed these girls a script and talking points that they actually don't really believe in. Regardless of whether they were able to see the footage of the podcast that hadn't come out yet or not, they were definitely fed lines of what to say. She asked them about bimbo, so she is still feeding them lines. And of course, we had the dumb blonde with Paris Hilton. That didn't go well at all. Why would you want to talk about this crap? What do you think about the word bimbo? I'm sure each of these girls has some kind of cause that they believe in. Maybe just ask them about their causes and what they're passionate about instead of feeding them these lines like, and what do you think about bimbo? And what do you think about angry black women? And what do you think about all the things I care about talking about, even though they don't make any sense in this modern day times? Because these are Zoomers, so they care about modern day stuff.
She's only ever heard the word on TikTok. I mean, talk about aging myself. But this idea of the bimbo, the dumb blonde, this was something that I grew up seeing all the time. And here we go. They hadn't. So I thought, maybe let's gear shift a bit. What are some other topics we've talked about throughout the season of this podcast? How about singleton? And I walked these young women through my experience when I was an Immaculate Heart. And as I shared with you earlier, this assignment that I had to plan my own wedding. One of our assignments in our Religion 2 class. And I asked them their thoughts on that.
Just remember, this is a faith-based school, a Catholic school. So obviously the traditional values are going to be reinforced. And the girls say things like, oh, well, if we were asked to do that now, we would just shut that down and say, oh, no, we're not going to plan our wedding on my time. And there's one that says she's a queer and that she gets a lot of backlash from being a queer at that school. Girl. You're in a Catholic school. Of course, you're going to get backlash. Like, certain things happen in certain environments. It is what it is. That's life. And Meghan thinks she's doing something, by the way, with this. Exploiting these girls. Using these girls to be her mouthpiece about the non-issues that she's talking about. Okay, so the girls continue to talk about non-conformism and how they don't want to get married, they don't want to have children, they don't want to this and that, and so on and so forth. I wonder if when they were actually enrolled in the school, because these are graduates, if they would have had that same energy. I wonder. Because now they're graduated, so they can be queer and they can be not wanting to have traditional values and whatever. Now, though.
Mm-hmm. And that you don't feel the judgment, but you also don't have the self-judgment. Yes. That's great. And each of their experiences are so unique and also really refreshing, because some of the conversations that we started having when I was sitting with them are not the conversations that I was having when I was in high school.
Yes, because you were enrolled in the school and you would not be conforming to these non-conformist ideas whilst you're there being taught by nuns. Because the tension is real. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening with me, because I said I need you guys for this one, because this one sounds extra dumb. I mean, again, just to reiterate, they're still repeating her talking points. It's a dark time. There are people out waiting outside to take away my freedoms. Said no one ever in 2022. Nobody said that. I'm on YouTube. The CEO is a woman. What is she doing? What is she talking about?
It's kind of scary where we're headed right now.
And I think these labels also, are so detrimental because, as you said, they stay with women. So once they're labeled at one time in their life, they'll start to look in on themselves and say, what's wrong with me? What do I need to change about myself? And when the next opportunity comes, they might change themselves to be less outspoken or less bossy or less diva-like,
So this last comment, it really stuck with me. It's like the question I was posing earlier, the one that we ask ourselves in middle school, high school, and that we keep asking ourselves over and over throughout the course of our lives. Can
I just say that Meghan Markle missed her childhood because she sat in front of the TV watching fantasy and fiction. And now she's trying to go back and relive her childhood for some strange dysfunction or lacking that she feels. Most people are very comfortable moving on in life and just talking about the here and now, and not so much about when they were in high school. Loser!
Supposed to be, as opposed to just being, and believing that that's enough, which in some ways is rooted in our experience of not ever thinking that we are enough.
Girl, if you had just embraced your childhood instead of trying to rush home to watch somebody else's fictional interpretation of childhood, you would not be doing this right now and wasting people's time and money on Spotify.
Is the archetype of unworthiness.
That is the voice of Dr. Shivali Spari, author of The Radical Awakening, here to shed some light on what happens to our core selves as the years pass.
She introduced another guest out of the blue sky, like she's literally in her campus, and then all of a sudden some doctor is introduced. Hello, Clarice. And this is how her podcast is run. We're still in the intro.
From that archetype comes these masks that we begin to wear in our lives in order to purchase the crumbs of love, worth, validation, and acceptance. So these masks become our second skin. We don't realize that they are our conditionings. We believe them to be who it is we are. We've all lost ourselves, I say, on the sidewalks of our childhood. And part of our awakening is to go reclaim that lost part of us.
I mean, I agree that when you try to be something you're not, you are trying to please. But I don't see how that connects to childhood. Children are free. They're living, they're enjoying, they don't have responsibilities, they're living their best lives. That's how it should be. I don't know how she connects being a fraud, like Meghan is, and purporting to be something you're not, to childhood. It's a bunch of quacks up on this podcast.
And here's where things come full circle. Because those 3 words we ask everyone in this series,
which I never cover.
Describe yourself as a little.
I never cover that part. That's at the very end where they say, "Oh, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself when you were a child, and what would you say you are now?" I never cover that because it's BS. And normally, like I said, it just has to do with loneliness. Is what the sum of it is for all the guests.
Those words don't serve simply as a reflection on the past. Those words are a chance for another kind of reflection.
What kind?
Who is the woman staring back at me in the mirror? What has happened to her over the years?
So plagiarizing Oprah. What happened to you? What happened to me? You know that book?
How can I reconnect with some of the core tenets of my being? Because after all, that's what we are. Human beings. Humans just being. Whatever you were meant to be.
This is so insane. If you're just being, why are you fighting to reconnect with things? Why are you constantly overcorrecting? If you're just being, then you're just chilling, is what I feel like. But I don't know what she feels like. She's dumb as hell.
You were meant to be. No labels, no types, no masks. Outside
I said it.
The box, just all natural. All you. You know, the kid on the sidewalk. Dreaming about her endless possibilities. Where did she go?
Once again, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for supporting me. This is just the intro that we just finished, and we're about to go in on the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. And we're doing it together because
on those lines, when you color outside of them, freely expressing our identities and embracing the nuances that make us, quite simply, a human being.
Okay, here's where I want to say this, though. You know, she has started out talking about negative connotations and these names and these archetypes and stereotypes that are very negative. And then she's segued slowly into activist, which is not such a negative connotation, in my opinion. And now she's gone into just human being. They hate me for being a dumb blonde, a black angry white woman, black woman, whatever. I don't know, a diva and an activist. And now they just hated me for being human. The ultimate victim arc. I just want to say this last thing before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of it. Her podcasts are run like this. In high school, you get book reports, and they give you the book, you read the book, and then you have to do a report on it. If you didn't, you BS'd your way through the book report. So, for example, you'd have like Huckleberry Finn, you had to read that, but you didn't read it, but you have to now write a report on it. And it's like, oh, well, Huckleberry reminds me of the word berry, and berry is like blueberry, which is the name of my cat. And it's very interesting when you think about how berry could be blueberry, or it could be blueberries, which are the fruit, and that is what this book really represents. And the teacher is reading this with the red pen in her hand, ready to just put F. not prepared, not researched. Please see me after class. That is literally the description of her podcast. It's not even the cliff notes of Huckleberry Finn that was read. Okay, so let's continue with this failure. Sorry guys, my camera battery died. I will be doing a part 2, 3, 4, and whatever I have to do. So please stick with me. Don't forget to subscribe and press bell notification. And please comment down below if you want me to do a part 2 and tell me what you think. Thank you so much.